I see communication as a non stop, voluntary, and involuntary process of exchanging information, knowledge, energy, and vibration. Basically, putting this academic definition to the side, in everyday language, I'm basically saying that we are communicating non stop, whether we want to or not. Are we doing it mindfully or mindlessly?
Everyone, welcome back to another episode of Nourished Inside Out. I am here with Mario Wisa today, and today we're going to dive into deep foundations of communication. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mario.
Excited to be here. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Do you mind telling us a little bit about your background and your journey and how you decided to create a career in communications for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of, every time I hear like someone ask me, what is your background? I'm like, oh my God, it's so much. What can I share? There's a lot, but like background, like I've taken millions of steps in lifetime. My research actually humbled me and my research in communication. And I just realized this morning that I have been saying that I have been doing my research in the field of communication for 17 years. I have been saying this for the last 2 years. So it's like 19 years now. I am not aware of time. When you just like go with the flow and enjoy every breath that you take and every action that you take, life just really, time does not exist. Quick background. I was born and raised in Egypt and came to the US in the year 2000, quarter of a century ago. Basically, my desire was to learn the English language. Fast forward 25 years later, I traveled Asia for 5 years. I had more than 12 different jobs and careers, working in three different corporations: Bank of America, Expedia, NCR, and served in the US Navy. And I have published three books in the past 2 years, and I'm working on my fourth one. And my first three books have been translated to different languages in the Middle East and Africa. The topic is high in demand. And when you hear people say, once you find your it, there's no turning back, no matter how much you talk about it, until we experience it itself, what our it is really, there's no turning back. And communication is my it. And this is what I'm going to do until my last breath. So I simply show up on a podcast like yours, Anita, and I give the host full permission to just pick my brain out, ask any questions. There's no Q&A, there's no like script or anything. When we show up and cultivate a stream of consciousness, people who can listen to this in the future can feel it, and they actually feel like they are part of this conversation. So let's create something beautiful together.
Wow, that's incredible. I love that you went from a country like Egypt and you wanted to move to the States to learn English. I think that's a really bold and a really brave move. Since you've been studying the language and communications, what is your definition of communication?
Oh, I'm so glad I'm standing because I get so super excited. So if I move around, just the word, just like ding, ding, ding in my heart, like butterflies. I love this word. And it's really a privilege, as every other researcher, when they dive deep into a specific field or topic, you get to the point where you coin your own definitions for words, meanings, based on your depth of understanding. So, my own coin definition of communication is a non stop, voluntary, and involuntary process of exchanging knowledge, information, energy, and on a quantum level vibration. I'm going to say it one more time, a little bit slower. I see communication as a non stop, voluntary, and involuntary process of exchanging information, knowledge, energy, and vibration. Basically, putting this academic definition to the side, in everyday language, I'm basically saying that we are communicating non-stop, whether we want to or not. Are we doing it mindfully or mindlessly? And that's a key, one of the keys.
I really like how you said that we're always communicating mindlessly or mindfully. Can you explain the difference of those two?
Absolutely. For thousands of years, there's a big debate between scholars and historians, and this idea that our life is predetermined or we have free will. There's a big debate on that. Is life and our path is predetermined, or we actually get to choose how events unfold? Well, I realized from my research that these two, whether everything is predetermined or we have free will, coincide with our subconscious and conscious behavior. So, from the day we're born until we are 7 years of age, our subconscious mind being formed by the environment, we are actually not aware, we are not conscious, we're learning the language, we actually learning to stand up and walk on both feet. As a homo erectus, we stand up. um Actually, we're homo sapien, we're supposed to be sapien is like wise, but we don't have that much proof of the homo sapien. We basically copy our environment, and that is big part of how our subconscious mind is being formed. There's a really powerful book, it's called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy, and that book, I read it over 20 years ago and really helped me to understand that. So subconscious behaviors is basically, you know what you know because that's how you were programmed. The second option, which is, it's almost the transition is joyful, yet it's also, I believe it's by choice, that we exist consciously and intentionally. How we process our thoughts and feelings, how we express ourselves becomes a conscious choice that we created. If you think about it, the reason why you speak the language that you do, just because the household that you grew up in, that's what your mom, dad, siblings, that's what they spoke, and we just learned from that. We get to some point in our lives where we learn another language. And I think you're a perfect example for that. By choice, you go somewhere else to learn a new language by choice. Yes, maybe what happened in the past or a conversation you had with someone, or you had the opportunity and like travel somewhere else to learn the culture and the language. The culture shapes our perception, and in the meantime we actually can choose how we are being shaped. I don't think I've ever made that statement before. It seems overwhelming, yet this is the beautiful thing about being human, that we actually have choices by using our prefrontal cortex, which is conscious decision, consciously learn something new, consciously communicating with self and other. Versus, when you're riding, I don't know, riding the elevator, and someone asks you like, "Hey, what's up?" I say, "Ah, not much." That's a very popular Q&A. We all respond, "Hey, what's up? Not much. How's it going? Good, good, good. How are you? Good, good." This is really a subconscious behavior. For me, sometimes when I ride the elevator and someone asks me like, "Hey, how's it going?" I'm like, "Oh my god, I have so much going on. Do I need to tell you the whole day or what?" So how we process information is really important. Are we on autopilot, or we are creating mindfully, intentionally, and deliberately?
That's a really beautiful way to say it. It's really what you were saying about like if we're riding in the elevator, we already have like these Q&A that's already programmed into our mind instead of like consciously thinking about it. That's just talking and communicating on autopilot instead of being more mindful. Like when if somebody asks you that question, "Hey, how are you?" You're like, "Oh, great. Here's a whole list. Where do you want me to start?" But that's actually a beautiful thing because that's conscious and mindful thinking and communication. How does communication play a role with creating healthy relationships?
Okay, let's go back again to that situation in the elevator.
Yeah.
So, my own subconscious response that often comes out of my mouth when someone asks me, "How are you?" Actually, oftentimes I say, "I feel really grateful," or "I'm really grateful." And every single time, you can see the look on their face like, no one ever said that in my life before. No one ever responded that way before. Just say, "I'm grateful, happy to be alive. I'm actually having a kick ass day." The words that we use do create. I'm going to use my hand to just count down 5 seconds of silence, and then I'm going to make a statement after that. So I'm counting now. I think that's approximately 5 seconds. Until I spoke, those 5 seconds of silence were created by just existing. The moment we open our mouth and make a statement, say something that never existed in this time and this moment in our lives. What I'm trying to say here is cultivating healthy relationships with other people is to realize the responsibility that we have in creating a relationship with our own selves. Oftentimes, many people look at if this relationship might work for me or not, or where is this going? And well, I strongly encourage the person to just slow down and become more aware of the relationship with your own self. We were born with ourselves, and our last breath on this planet Earth will be with ourselves. I hope that does not sound so heavy, but it's really crucial. Oftentimes, we think that relationships is something on the outside with other people, which is true. Yet, the bedrock of any healthy relationship is to actually to become aware of the relationship that we have with ourselves. Everything else is built on that. Obviously, there are not many parents out there who would drive this point in a kid's heart or mind. Sometimes we have to learn this from life, maybe reading a book, maybe having a conversation with someone, or studying, take a specific class or subject that will helps us to be tuned inward. As I'm bringing this up, this is the two pillars that I'm building my life on is communication and yoga. And I feel like both of them are two different sides to the same coin. So yoga, I don't know if you're familiar with the word yoga. The yoga comes from the word yoga, and it's a Sanskrit word. Sanskrit word is like over 8,000 years old language. It's in India. And the word yog, it means union or bond. So you basically become one with yourself and one with the universe when you practice yoga, and you're able to sit and practice static meditation, where basically you're breathing and not being too attached to your thoughts. That's yoga. Communication is a non-stop existing with your own self. When we talk about communication, it's amazing how more than 95% of my conversations about communication is about conflict resolution, or as you mentioned, healthy relationships, or connecting with clarity. Yet we are approaching it from the external perspective. Me, conflict resolution with other people. Me creating clarity with how I communicate and express myself with other people in other relationships. I'm going to encourage anyone who might be listening to this. You can pause the podcast now, or you can do it after the podcast. Go in the bathroom, look in the mirror, and have an honest conversation with yourself. Really ask yourself, how are you doing? Are you okay with how we are going about life? Do you feel like we need to make some changes? Is there something that you did or said either today or yesterday or a year ago that you'd like to improve on? 20 years ago, if you were to tell me this, I would tell you, you're crazy. Until I found out for my research, I have this conversation often with myself. And sometimes I just, believe it or not, sometimes I just stand there and just cry. And after that, I smile and just, it's all good. Having this healthy connection with one's self to mindfully and intentionally become aware of our inner dialogue. In academic terms, we say intrapersonal communication and interpersonal communication. Interpersonal, INTER, like what you and I are having, Anita, right now, 101, even though it's also digital communication. Intra, INTRA. This is 70% of my research. And I realized and I found something really important for us to be aware of. Most people who are content with their life, they're happy, satisfied, they find themselves lucky, are the ones who have positive affirmation that tells them so. I am lucky. If you go around throughout the day, every day say, I'm lucky, I'm lucky. What do you think? Amazing things are going to happen to you. I am content. I am grateful for what I have. Well, universe is like, wow, you're happy with what I give you? Well, let me give you more. This is real experiences. Once we have an honest and vulnerable connection with ourselves, no turning back. Basically, every single relationship that we get involved in, we will be driven internally and subconsciously to make decisions whether we continue with this relation or even started or not based on our internal guidance. Magnificence, magnificent guidance that we have from the inside. To become aware of that is to actually pause, slow down, and become mindful of the inner dialogue.
Really powerful, beautiful way of how you put it together of having an honest conversation with yourself and a vulnerable one. I used to be a ballet dancer, and I remember after like ballet class, my teachers would end class a few minutes early and they would turn off the lights in the studio and they would make us go sit in front of the mirror and just stare at ourselves and have that honest, vulnerable conversation with ourselves. And I remember for years when they had us do that, I couldn't feel anything. I was still constantly numbing because I was having a conversation with myself and communicating with myself, but it was just thought after thought, running after running. I felt like I couldn't fully be vulnerable with myself. But then, flash forward years later, now if I look at myself in the mirror, I actually want to have that vulnerable conversation. And it takes so much weight off your shoulders when you just fully accept who you are, where you are. It's a really beautiful and powerful way to put it.
To have this vulnerable connection with oneself, I think it takes a great deal of strength and openness to be willing. I enjoy hiking. And I remember many years ago, people say tree hugger. And if you touch a tree, you feel something. I'm like, I don't know, 15 years ago, I could not feel anything. I went on a hike a couple of weeks ago and I go and touch a tree and then I feel invigorated, feel energy. And that takes conscious awareness to cultivate that intentionally, to actually be open. And I have something funny to tell you really quick. We talk about the example of connecting with oneself by looking in the mirror. Well, this is very interesting because, especially my mother, who passed away about 4 years ago, my entire childhood, she always told me to not look or stare in the mirror for too long because it might make me crazy. She said ghosts will come out. I know. That tells you the culture that we are in is shaping us. And she believed that her entire life. I mean, she passed away when she was like 74, 75. She believed that her entire life. For me, 15 years ago, I realized that the open connection and honest connection that we make with ourselves when we look in the mirror and check in with oneself is beyond powerful. It's like God level kind of ability to connect with yourself. What I'm trying to say here is we need to be mindful and intentionally filter out what comes in. I heard someone says before that we need to weed out our mind, take the weed out, clean, take the trash out. We need to do that often. We need to create space for something new. And this is very important. And I don't know how helpful this is, but maybe because something I'm going through myself, I feel the more we cultivate relationship with ourselves and we enjoy our own company, we actually have less need for other people's companies. You just enjoy yourself so much. You feel if someone comes in, they really need to offer something interesting to add to what I already have or what I already cultivated with myself. I actually made this video on TikTok like a week ago, which basically said we need to stop looking for someone to want us or need us because You need you. You want you. You were giving this gift from the day you were born, this body, this existence, this experience, and cultivate it intentionally. Be happy with it. And whatever you may not be satisfied with, love it, and the change will happen automatically.
That's a really beautiful way to say it because I think a lot of times when we're in like a people pleasing state of mind, we're constantly, oh, I need to be around this person. I need to go hang out with these people. It could be any reason. But when you get comfortable in your own presence and you find that peace within yourself, you start to get picky about your energy because then you no longer feel like you have to go hang out with that person. You have to go to that event. If it adds value, then yeah. But if it doesn't add value, you're content with not socializing. How long have you been practicing yoga?
I started practicing yoga in 2012. So 13 years ago. And actually, I am taking a course right now to be a yoga instructor after practicing for 10 plus years. I'm like, you know what? I need to learn to like teach. And actually, for me, I'm not sure if I'm going to teach anyone, but I'm taking a teacher training yoga course right now. I'll graduate on March 16th. I remember first time I was exposed to yoga, as I mentioned, it was 2012. I was working at Bank of America, and I was basically going to pick up my dry cleaning suit and all that stuff. And as I'm passing the dry cleaning, I saw this studio and big sign on it. It says hot yoga experience. I'm like, yoga, I don't know much about yoga at all. So I walked in there, and the first question I asked was, do guys actually do yoga? It's only for women. Obviously, they laughed and they give me the pass for like 2 weeks free to attend. And I never looked back since then. Yoga really helps us to connect with ourselves. And I know many people say, I don't have body for yoga or yoga is not for me. Some people are not even aware that yoga, all the thousands of poses, they exist in yoga to give our body healthy permission to just sit and be statically existing, breathing without being too attached to our thoughts. We need to be really clear what is meditation. Oftentimes, when people think meditation and yoga are pretty much the same. Honestly, they go hand in hand. The purpose of all the yoga poses is so we can sit for some time, at least 10, 15 minutes without moving. Miracles happen. I see meditation as cultivating the mind intentionally. I choose the thoughts that pass in my own mind. And we're able to do that when we are not moving much. Very subtle. There is a static meditation and dynamic meditation. Dynamic meditation is when you're cultivating your mind intentionally, dynamically. You're doing something. Let's say you're going to cook something or you're chopping the vegetables and you are only with the vegetables right now. You're not thinking about the conversation from yesterday. You're not thinking about what you're going to have for breakfast the next day. Here and now with what you're doing. Static meditation is the most popular one where you just basically sit any comfortable pose. You could be even laying down like corpse pose, shavasana, and just exist, breathing and processing your thoughts intentionally and mindfully.
I'm happy that you brought up meditation and breathing. Can you explain how breathing and communication blend together?
This is the one common thing that we all have in common amongst all humans: breathing. Despite the language, the race, the culture, economic standards, or wealth, or family size, whatever, even how tall you are, how short you are, we all are breathing the same air. This idea in itself, I can pause for a minute and just really take this in. We all are breathing the same air. It does not matter what you think, what you believe in, what language you speak. We all are breathing the same air. And obviously, in yoga meditation, that's called pranayama. Two Sanskrit word. Prana is like universal energy, and pranayama is like expansion. So when we breathe, we're actually expanding, literally, physically, and mentally as well. When you think about breathing and communication, Every single word I'm saying and I'm sharing with you right now, I say it only when I exhale. If I try and inhale and speak, let me try this. Let me try to inhale and speak and say something. It's not this, you cannot do that, right? Unless I want to sound like a cartoonish character. When we exhale, we expand, we process energy, and we are creating. Expanding is creation. And the beautiful thing to become aware of this, when we are engaged in a conversation with someone, whatever the topic or the idea might be, whether we're talking about something you studied or history or your past or future plans, monitoring and becoming aware of our own breathing helps us to create intentionally. One. Two, when we pay attention to other people breathing, we can actually be more tuned in with how they are operating. If someone speaking so much and saying so much and not taking deep inhale to recharge, maybe that could be a sign of someone a little too anxious or maybe too excited. Even when we listen to someone who's sharing their thoughts and ideas and they pause to breathe, we need to be aware of that. There's actually something I call that like 5 seconds. When I'm engaged in a conversation with someone and they reach a point in their speaking where I'm not 100% sure whether they're done with their thoughts or not. After they're done speaking, I actually count 5 seconds to myself to see if anything else will come up for them before I interject and say something else. To realize our breathing pattern and that when we speak, we actually exhale, expand. That is responsibility. And we need to take this on intentionally.
Those are some really valuable insights because I never really thought about it either. You don't communicate if you're inhaling, you only communicate when you're exhaling. And that makes so much sense because when you exhale, you're making room for new things, you're creating space, and that's such a powerful thing. I really like your tip of taking 5 seconds before speaking while in a conversation with somebody because then you're also allowing that person to finish or if they have anything else to say.
It's kind of interesting. I have to share this with you because it just came up for me now. I have really zero issues with people interrupting me when I'm speaking, or they have a remark, or they say, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you. I'm like, no, no problem at all. You can interrupt me all you want. We're just having a flow. In the meantime, I don't know how to make sense out of this. I have a great deal of capacity to not interrupt other people. Yet I give other people to interrupt me if they wish to. Why? Because I am responsible for myself. I am not going to impose that on other people. Like, you should not interrupt me. You should listen. You should not do. Who am I to tell them that? Once I master myself, then maybe I can say something to someone else. So, working on oneself and being aware of our own pattern is very powerful.
Like you said, we're responsible for ourselves and we can't tell other people what to do. We can only give them suggestions or advice. But at the end of the day, how you communicate, how you take care of yourself, that's all on you.
I am going to start by mentioning the opposite of that, unhealthy communication. What is unhealthy communication? Example of unhealthy communication is when you're trying to do something new in your life and you have someone next to you who tells you, "Oh, you cannot do that. That's not possible. You tried before, you did not succeed. Why are you even doing this? Why are you even like wasting your time? What's the point of this? Is this gonna make you enough money? Is this really how you're gonna spend your time?" That's example of unhealthy communication. Healthy communication is intentionally and deliberately creating inspiring and empowering words for self and others. I catch myself sometimes. My mom, maybe she passed away, but her voice still in my head. I'm sure we all can relate to that. Sometimes when I'm doing something around the kitchen, let's say I drop something, or I don't know, I do something that's I did not plan on, or something happened that I'm not content with. maybe the voice in my head goes like, oh, I'm being like hard on myself, like, oh, how can you be so stupid, how can you do that? It doesn't happen that much, but sometimes it happens. I catch that thought and I challenge it. We need to be aware that we have the complete ability to filter the processes up here and to have healthy communication. It really, as I mentioned, it starts with healthy intrapersonal communication, how we connect with ourselves. In terms of career and our future advancements, every job I have ever held, I get promoted super quickly within 3 to 6 months. I give so much credit to my parents because I started working with my parents in their supermarket from age 9 or 10 years old. Connecting with people, being able to just provide service and build relationship is a piece of cake for me. I was told often, just because I'm nice and friendly, I was told that I can sell anything on the planet. And I always wondered about that. Should I work for a car dealership, make tons of money, or what? I can sell anything. It's true. And I realized that selling something or offering something that helps humanity is the greatest privilege. To have healthy communication and healthy approach in our career, we need to be crystal clear about the difference between filling our pocket versus filling our heart. When we learn how to fill our heart and be content with what is and appreciate every single step that we take forward and we celebrate it every single night, I congratulate myself that I made it through. When I go and drive my car and I come back home, I congratulate myself that I made it back safe. So many accidents happen every single second. To celebrate every single process and step that we take forward, we basically celebrate with ourselves. Well, that means if someone else celebrate my progress from the outside, that is additional for me. I am already doing it for myself. But if you want to celebrate with me, come aboard. Thank you. So when we operate from this principle that we are our own vessel. Oh, really quick. What is temple? Temple literally means a holy place. When we take care of our own temple, do we really need someone else to take care of it from the outside? I am maintaining it mindfully and intentionally. So, whether healthy relationship, healthy communication, healthy approach to our career, um, it all starts by healthy maintaining this temple of ours. I agree. I think you've heard this before, and many of your listeners might be familiar with it, that they say, we become what we think about most of the time. We're very familiar with this. Well, guess what? I realized from my research that what we think, what we say, what we do creates the future you. What we think, what we say, what we do. Because if I sit here and keep thinking all the time and I don't do anything, well, guess what? Nothing's going to change. So to be aware of our thoughts, processes, and how we interpret them and create with our words and the steps and the actions that we take create the future you in career, in relationship. Um, I'm sure you're familiar with the following saying. People say actions speak louder than words.
Yes, many times.
Yeah. Well, how are you making this statement? By words.
That's so
That's the power of words.
for somebody who wants to work on their intrapersonal communication, the communication with themselves, what are some tips you would give them to start building a healthy communication within themselves?
I'll give one simple tip that I use every single morning. It works for me and it pays dividend every single minute of my day. Intentionally cultivating quality time with one's self. When I wake up in the morning, anytime between 4 and 5 o'clock, sometimes I go for a walk. If the gym is open at 5, I can go and like jump on the treadmill for like 20, 30 minutes, just to get my heart pumping, blood flow, and dopamine release, obviously, and endorphin. After that, I come back to my place to take a shower. I make some tea with honey and lemon, and I sit with myself. The first 20 minutes, 30, sometimes 45 minutes, I don't really set a timer on it. I just sit there, light my incense and candle, and I sit there sipping on my tea. Sometimes I have like relaxing music playing in the background, sometimes not. Cultivating quality time with one's self is the biggest and the most important step that we can take forward. Really, imagine you have an awesome friend of yours. You guys meet almost every day or maybe a couple of times a week. Once you get together, time does not exist. Well, like, wow, 4 or 5 hours went by. You can go for a coffee, hiking, whatever. You watch movie together. Imagine if that friend of yours is actually yourself. You feel that way with yourself. Great awareness to have. And it's not that easy to do at the beginning, to be frank with you, because life can distract us easily. Paying attention to oneself is one of the greatest favors that we can do to everyone around us.
That's really valuable and a great piece of advice. Thank you for sharing that. I remember when I was trying to be vulnerable with myself and with my emotions, sometimes it would be 6 p.m. In the evening. And I would be like, oh, okay, how many more hours until I can go to sleep? It just drags out if you don't have that peace within yourself. But now, once you learn to cultivate that peace within yourself, you genuinely enjoy each minute. And I think that's a really beautiful thing.
Thank you. Yep, absolutely.
Well, before we go ahead and wrap things up, is there any last piece of advice that you would give to the audience about communication, yoga, or breathing?
I'm going to keep it really simple, and I think it's really vital to share this with people because I'm realizing that many of the interviews that I get invited on, one of the biggest topics that gets brought up in communication is conflict resolution and finding a common ground. Something I want to share with you and audience really quick. I call it the 3-1-2 method. If there is challenging situation or conversation that it needs to be constructive so we can move forward, think about 3-1-2. What are 3-1-2? Which is a little confusing. 3, bring up 3 positive, empowering points to the conversation. 1, bring up one thing to improve on. 2, come up with 2 actionable steps to move forward. Keep rehashing the past, what was said, what was done. We can do this on forever. Our mind is the greatest storyteller on this planet. Hence, we need to give it guidance. 3-1-2. Whatever the conversation, either at work, relationship, friends, when uncomfortable situation comes up, think of 3 things positive to bring up and be grateful for in the conversation about the other person. 1 thing to work on, to improve on, and 2 actionable steps to move on forward to create a healthier and more cohesive relationship. That's all.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Tell us, where can people find you and where can they support you in your work?
I am everywhere. If you like go on Google and type my first name, last name, it's zero privacy at this point. I'm all over Mario Wisa. You'll find my LinkedIn, social network, Instagram. In the meantime, if you go to my amazing website, fantastic team that I have put together about 6 months ago, my first name, last name, Mario Wisa, Mario, and Wisa, WISSA.com. Few fun things to do actually on my website. One of them is to get free chapters for my 3 books in one file. You have the option to take under the tab Get Empowered. You can take a free online assessment to figure out your personality type, communication style. And also, I'm offering free 30-minute 101 sessions for people who might have something in the relationship they would like to work on, or maybe figuring out where to go from here in terms of like career or job. And some people actually not aware that they have inner voice. And once they become aware of it, they don't know what to do about it. Let's connect together and create healthy future for all of us.
It's incredible. Thank you. I'll have all of those links linked down in the show notes below so people can stay in touch with you. Thank you for your time and being here today, Mario.
Thank you for making this happen.